Okay. Right. And
We don't do
this will be available, but a couple of people asked if it would be, since they could make it this evening. Okay, well, let's start it. And then before we get started, again, I'd just like to ask you, if you haven't, put your location where you're from in the chat. So it'll give us an idea, geographic distribution of where our people are from. And then now I would like to introduce this evening's participants, or I guess, yes. All right. We'll start with the Reverend Sonna BKey. All of you know Sonna. She is the board chair of the Arkansas Citizens Climate League, senior pastor for Southerners at Springfield, Illinois, educational strategist for the Neighborhood Seminary, North Carolina. As you know, she was a former chapter leader of the CCCL in Fort Smith. She's a former master of community engagement at Central Prep, Fort Smith. And she's part of two community groups, PACE, Police and Community Engagement, and Bridges. And she's currently a doctoral student. And I don't know what she does in her spare time. We're really very pleased, Sonna, about doing this presentation and speaking for the league. We're extremely honored to have leadership as we transition into more environmental justice oriented non-profit. Okay.
Whoops, sorry. I'm having trouble getting the slides to change. There we go.
And Jan Shaper, who is also in the presentation. She's our program coordinator, independent contractor for the league. And we don't have enough time to sing the praises of Jan. She's the one that helps us out of all of her jams, no matter what, webinars, meetings, whatever. Jan has been with the league since we first started in the summer 2017. She was an on the board, and then she joined us as an independent contractor and is now in her 4th year. So thank you, Jan, for all you do. And that handsome looking guy over there curled up, that's Diamond, Sonna's dog, who's taking care of me and giving me some very good advice. I'm the administrator for the league, and I had the great fortune a couple of weekends ago to spend the weekend with Sonna and Christina in Springfield. So Diamond is our unofficial mascot. So welcome, and let's dive right in. Jan?
Thanks, Robert. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. And thank you to everyone for being here for this important look at environmental justice. Here's just a brief overview of what we want to do tonight. We really want to delve into what we mean by environment and justice, and to recognize the unique burdens that communities of color and low-income communities face in our country in terms of the environmental burdens that they carry. We have 3 learning goals that that as a group will identify the scope and range of what is meant by the environment. We're going to learn some key dates and leaders of the environmental justice movement, and we'll examine the intersection of race and the environment and the need for environmental justice. We've got a lot of wonderful material that Sonna's put together, and I also know that everyone on this call is committed to environmental justice. So there will likely be questions. We're going to have points along the way for discussion, but if you do have questions, I ask you to put them in the chat, and we hopefully have some time for Q&A at the end. And just know that we will also have points during the presentation where we'll be asking you to chime in the chat and otherwise. And now I'm going to turn it over to Sonna.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Robert. So we're going to we use this word called curation, and we all know that how we define words are very important. How we define things, the words we give them, the meaning behind them is important. So we're going to curate a few images, and I want you to hold your idea, your mindset about what these images mean. Which image represents the environment? So think about which image represents the environment and why you come up with that conclusion. So drink the images in, and I think we're going to have you put those in put them in the chat box. So drink these images in. Which image represents the environment and why? And you can put your answers in the chat. How we define things are important. The way we give them meaning, why we give them that meaning, those things are important. Which image represents the environment and why? If you wouldn't mind sharing your thoughts as you're drinking in those images, if you wouldn't mind sharing them in the chat.
What are we seeing in the chat, Robert?
Now, I'm sorry, all of them, most people, all of them represent the environment.
Okay.
All of them, the good and the not so good. There's an environment in every one of the images. Some of them are buried beneath human stuff. So, the true environment is the one with natural nature. The real environment these days in areas we see most often, more likely some pollution.
Good feedback. Good feedback.
I don't like. What, you
ahead,
want
Robert.
a couple more?
Yeah, give me a couple more.
Okay, I don't like to think of the images with humans that are impacted as the environment at first thought, but are nonetheless. And finally, all of them, both the good and the bad, both have an effect on us and the earth.
Good. I just want to reiterate like what Jan said. All of us here have a passion for the environment. So those are some really good answers. We know in the dominant culture, most of the time when we speak about the environment, we're talking about the dominant culture defines the environment as water, trees, birds. They don't really see the larger scope of what the environment is. So I want you to hold on to your definition as we move forward. So hold on to that definition and make a mental picture of it, because we'll come back to it. So another question. Hold on to your working definition of the environment. And now we have another question. What does the word justice mean to you? What does the word justice mean to you? We know this word has been a hot topic for a long time, and I think it's a good thing that we started to put our world together with sort of a justice lens. So what does the word justice mean to you? And I'm going to ask you to share that in your chat as well. What does the word justice mean to you? maybe a little bit of when did you become aware? When do you think you developed a justice lens? What does the word justice mean to you, and what point? I had a conversation with an individual the other day, and he said it was the George Floyd incident to where he became aware of a need for justice and the justice lens. So what does the word justice mean to you? And can you remember when you started to develop a justice lens? Or maybe you've always had it.
Sonna, we've got some really succinct answers coming in the chat. Here we go. Fairness, fair. All people are treated equally. All individuals getting what they need. That's a nice one. Here's a great one from Gladys. We're all in this together. George Floyd was an important part for me too. Here's a great one from Clayton. Justice at its best is love correcting everything that stands against love.
Preach, Clayton, preach.
Reverend Dr. King.
Very good, Gladys. I love that. Those are some good. So hold on to those. So we've already completed one of our goals, and that is to define 2 key words, environment and justice. So I want you to hold on to those as we're moving out. See what, as we go along, maybe that you'll add some more meat to the bones as we move forward.
Sonna, did you want anyone to say a little bit more about any of the things that they put in there? And here's another great one from Christina May, equal treatment in all areas of life.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to get let's chat about it a little bit.
Gladys, did you want to talk a little bit more maybe?
The key part for me was operationalizing we're all in this together, because I think, I'm realizing that a lot of people see we're all in this together as the way that progressive people are supposed to relate to each other, but we really don't have very much experience in actually making it work. And figuring out how to operationalize that, to me, is a really important thing. That the environmental justice, that's kind of what goes into my head when I hear environmental justice, is we got to make this work somehow.
Oh, that's good. And I like the way you use the term operationalize it, meaning how do we make it work? That's very good. Thank you for sharing, Gladys. Appreciate that. Really good insight.
Sonna, it was Clayton Summers who put in the quote from Dr. King. Would you like to hear some more about that?
Yes, I'd love to hear. Reverend Clayton, talk to us.
I can't take too much credit for that. That was on the Illinois Poor People's Campaign call. We were talking about that last night. But yeah, to me, justice is a continually evolving topic and definition, and it takes on a lot of different forms, but it's always based in that redemptive love.
Yes. Totally agree. Good. So justice and redemptive love. Redemption means what, Clayton?
Sorry, I just took a bite. Redemption means bringing about that right relationship again.
Yep. There's this old song we used to sing at Vacation Bible School. I've been reading. I don't want to say the other part because I don't agree with all the blood stuff, but oh, thank you all for sharing. Anybody else want to expound a little bit, Jan, or shall we move?
I think we might want to move on because we've got some other important information coming up.
Okay.
And we'll have more chances to chime in, but so many great answers in the chat. Thank you, everyone.
Good. Remind me to pick on Shelly since she's
there's plenty of wise people in the chat, including Shelly. All right, here we go.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the history of environmental justice a little bit, give you a little bit of background. So the father of the environmental justice movement is Dr. Robert Bullard. Dr. Robert Bullard. He's the former dean of the Barbara Jordan McKinney Leland School of Public Affairs of Texas Southern University. He is currently on staff as the Distinguished Professor of Urban Planning. So he is the father of the movement. He's the one that brought the word environmental justice. He's the one that coined that and the work behind it. He is a scientist. He began researching environmental racism in Houston communities after his wife, Linda, took a case representing members of a Black middle-class community who were fighting a landfill in their suburban neighborhood. She was a lawyer. The lawsuit was the first case. The lawsuit was the first case in the United States to use civil rights law to challenge environmental discrimination. Think about that power couple. Here we have an environmental scientist, and we have his wife, who's a lawyer, who's bringing the first case around environmental discrimination to the United States. And while the judge ultimately ruled in the favor of the company, Dr. Bullard was inspired to learn more about other communities of color facing unjust pollution burdens. Actually, a little bit of research, his wife told him, you need to do this. You need to find out what's going on here. So he wrote a book called Dumping in Dixie in September 1999, and it chronicles the efforts of 5 African-American communities. I want to say again, he is a scientist, so his writings are scientific, and so it's not a narrative story so much as it is the hardcore facts that tell the story. And so he looked at 5, I think it was Houston, Louisiana, Dallas, five other states that all, as he's doing this research, he discovers that some of the same practices are being used in all these communities, even though they're spread off all over different places. So the birth of the movement was in Warren County, North Carolina, a rural, low-income, predominantly Black community chosen by the state lawmakers to host a toxic waste plan. This is where the merging of civil rights and environmental rights began. The birth of the term environmental justice. So Warren County, North Carolina is where the term environmental justice became a real coin there. So we've talked about environment, we've talked about justice. Now we're going to put the 2 words together and going to ask you to define what is your definition of environmental justice, and we'll have you put that in the chat, and we'll spend a few minutes chatting about it. We're going to pick on Shelley first, so just so we know.
Get ready, Shelley.
What do you want me? I'm typing in chat right now. You want me to say something now? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, well, put your answer in there, and then I'll call on you first.
Okay.
Do you like being picked on, Shelley?
Not really, but I'll do it. Well, we just did this. Actually, we were talking about it on the radio show, and Sonna read the EPA definition of environmental justice, and she said, actually, it's much simpler. Just don't poison people. Just don't spew toxins on people. And it's really not expecting the low income and the marginalized communities to host all of the burdens from toxic industry. That other people may be imagining they're benefiting from.
Yeah, very good, very good, very good. And I like the placing the burden on communities of color is a good way to put it as it relates to toxic waste and things like that. Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Shelley. We'll give the rest of you a few more chances. You're putting in your definition of environmental justice.
Robert, you want to point out a few more things in the chat?
Hey, Gina's here. Hi, Gina. Did I say that right?
Got some really great things in the chat.
Okay. You want to call out a few?
Sure. Well, speaking of Gina, here's something. Recognizing the right for all to experience nature's beauty. Leave things in their original condition.
Mm.
And Kathy Jarvis, having all people live in healthy conditions, sharing.
Good, good, good. Love that, Kathy. Love that, Kathy.
Oh my gosh, I love this one by Christina May. It goes right to the heart of it. Do right by all people, human-wise and environment-wise.
I love
Environmental-wise.
that.
Sorry, Christina.
Very good. You want to talk a little bit more about that human-wise and environmental-wise, Christina? I don't know if I know you. Have we met before?
No, we haven't, and no, I don't. We do know each other, and I'm new to this environmental justice thing, but I have been a part of for a little while now, and the more that I read about it or experience it, it's just, I mean, man, you just have to do better by people in all, in all areas, and definitely with the environment. More people, people of color and people of marginalized people and people of poverty suffer way more than other individuals or non-people of color. And so that's devastating, and we just do have to do something about that.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think I see Sissy and Carl. What did they say, Robert?
Love your neighbor through caring for the environment.
Good, good.
And Segura from Mountain Home, equality and physical health opportunity in living conditions.
All right. All right. Okay.
Darien, addressing the ways in which environmental crises are impacting marginalized populations. And
very good. Talk to me a little bit, Sissy and Carl, about this love your neighbor. What is that all about? That's something new. I don't know if I've heard about that before. I don't know, did we lose?
Oh, y'all are muted. So you just need to unmute yourselves. Should be, there you go.
Okay, it seems to me that the way you love your neighbor is a direct reflection on how you treat the environment, how you love the environment.
I love that. Yep, yep. There's no way you can say that you love your neighbor if you aren't concerned about whether or not your neighbor has clean water. Very good, very good, very good, very good, very good. How are we doing on time, Jan?
I think you could take one more person if you wanted.
Okay, all righty.
Clayton, environmental justice. If justice is helping bring back right relationships through love, is bringing back right relationships in love between people with land.
Good. Talk to me a little bit about that definition. That's a really robust definition, Clayton.
I'm thinking of just the interdependence between all of those parts, because we are people. So it starts with that right relationship between people. And then that has to be extended to the land as well, because we exist as part of the land, and not just the good pictures of the land we like, of the lakes and the seagulls and the forest from earlier, but of the places that are full of pollution as well, and where equity has not reigned, in places where poverty is reigning more.
Good, good, good. I love that. I love that. That's almost panentheist.
Yeah, yeah, there's a little bit of that in there. Maybe
There's-
panentheism, yeah.
Yeah, and entheism.
You're picking up on my theology really quickly.
Yes. So that fancy word is to recognize that God is in everything, and everything has a little bit of divinity. So the
Mhm.
dandelions have a little bit of divinity in them. The cows have a little bit of divinity in them. Black bodies have divinity in them. Brown bodies have divinity in them. Red bodies have divinity in them. White bodies have divinity in them. The rich soil has divinity in it. The fish have divinity in them. The birds have divinity in them. The clouds have divinity in them. So that panentheism is a way of looking at the world and sort of recognizing the divinity in it. And so if you recognize the divinity in Black bodies and you recognize the divinity in the dark soil, then maybe you might treat it a little bit better. A little bit better. Okay. So
Sonna,
now,
should we jump to our slides that have definitions of environmental justice?
yeah, let's go to the EPA slide.
All
That'll
right, we'll
work.
see what, I'm gonna click next. We'll see what we get.
Okay.
Ah, there we go.
So we've worked on our definition, and here's the EPA's definition. And I do want to do a little caveat. There has been some conversation about this, so they are trying to correct it. So they added some bullet points, but right now here's their standing definition of environmental justice. Environmental justice is a fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. And then there's ... In order to make this happen, ... we got to do something ... But okay, so this is their very robust definition of environmental justice. And I'm going to offer you a response to this, as my response is, wow, that's a lot of words. And here is the environmental justice movement's response to the EPA's definition. And everybody read it with me. Stop poisoning people, period. Stop
Poisoning people, period.
period. Stop
Stop
poisoning people,
period.
So you can have a lot of words and a lot of bullet points, but if there's anything that doesn't deal with the fact that people of color have been intentionally poisoned, sanctioned by the government, whether it's through landfills, whether it's through lead in the water, unless your policy says it is wrong to poison people. Stop poisoning people, period, is the movement response. And basically what they're saying is, don't just give us sentiment, don't give us words, give us a policy that says it's wrong to put lead in the water of children. It's wrong to divert clean water from poor communities so that richer communities can have all the resources. There has to be a policy. If there's no policy, save your memorials, save your prayers, save your all of that stuff. There has to be a policy that says we don't poison people under any circumstances. Are y'all with me? Okay. All right. So the EJ movement is designed around some core principles, and I should let you know that the League has adopted these principles. I think we adopted these principles, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago, Robert?
In 2018, yes.
2018. So the Jaimez principles are, and I think Gladys used that word, organizing. The Jaimez principles are a way of keeping organizations who want to talk about the environment to keeping them accountable. So the first one is to be inclusive. Emphasis on bottom-up organizing. Let people speak for themselves. Work together in solidarity and mutuality. Build just relationships among ourselves. Commitment to self-transformation. So do I have a little bit of time to talk about these individual, or do I need to move
How about
on?
if we wait till we get to the Q&A and we'll see where we're at?
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay. So the conversation about environmental justice, have you ever driven and you got to the intersection, right? What happens if you speed through a four-way stop without stopping?
Dangerous.
It's dangerous. So when we talk about the environment in only futuristic terms, it's like we're speeding through the intersections. We have to stop and look at where does race, environment, poverty, gender, all of those things come together. If the conversation isn't intersectional, you're going to miss out on some important key parts. And so the same way we stop at a four-way stop, we stop and we look and we assess and we see. And then once it's clear to proceed, we proceed. We don't just plow through. So it's the same thing when we're talking about justice work. It has to be at the intersections. If it's not at the intersections, something is missing. In addition to it being at the intersections, it is work that you cannot do by yourself. Environmental justice is not a lone ranger accomplishment. It starts with, and that goes back to some of the principles, it starts with community. It starts with community. Okay, all right. So I want you to take a moment. We were, Robert and Jan and I, we were looking at this slide and we've thought about updating it and getting a different side, but this really captures what we as an organization, as the league, where our intentionality is behind some of the changes that we've made. So I want to give you a minute to just take a moment and look at that and sort of take it in for a minute. Race is a better predictor of the location of hazards, waste facilities than education or income. Race is a better predictor for the location of hazards, waste facilities than education or income. Let that sink in. Race is a better predictor of dangerous exposure to air pollutants than income. Infants born to minority mothers are more likely to be exposed to harmful environmental toxins in utero. Let those points sink in. That's why we needed a movement. That's why we needed a movement. That's why we needed to combine both. That's why environmental justice needs to be done at the intersections. It needs to be done at the intersections. Okay. Why some communities are hit harder by COVID? Less access to quality healthcare. More likely to have pre-existing conditions because if you live in a food desert and you don't have access to fresh vegetables, and there's a McDonald's and a liquor store and a gun store and a bail bondsman store on the corner, but there are no fresh vegetables, no gardens. More challenges accessing healthy food. Suffer greater exposure to air pollution because they say, hey, there are people over here, they don't matter, they don't have any divinity. Let's put a landfill by them. Make up a disproportionate number of frontline workers. Again, this is intersectional. If you don't have access to quality healthcare, then you probably don't have access to quality education. If you don't have access to those, you take what you can get. So you're on the front line, you're a frontline worker. Hardest hit by growing levels of poverty and layoff, furloughs that continue to rise. Have less access to capital. Capital. Somebody want to define that word, capital? Have less access to what? Less access to access. Oh, less access to access. Are more likely to live in multi-generational family houses where self-isolation is nearly impossible. This is true. This is true. Because we all have to come together to put our monies together to afford the rent. We got one car in between us, living in a 3-bed house, 4 generations, and everybody's a frontline worker. And you can't sneeze without it hitting somebody. Are you with me? This is why environmental justice work, it must be intersectional and it must be done in community. So what does environmental justice look like in your community? So we want you, if you would, go to the intersections of your community. Just go walk about. What do you see? What do you notice? What's different now? Put on a different lens when you go walk to your community. What do you notice in your community? And if you'd email us just a little bit of maybe a picture or a little synopsis about what environmental justice looks like in your community. Where do you see some of these core principles being acted, or where do you see where there's a potential? You say nothing's being done, but here's some potential. We want to invite you to share your pictures and just a small synopsis. If you want to add in a few words. I know Chrissy talked a little bit about the straws in her community, that she made a phone call to her principal to talk about the young kids using straws. I might have her share that story when we get to the Q&A section.
And Sonna, if you wanted to have people, we do have time for people to put some things in the chat if they already are seeing things in their communities or taking action things in their community that involve environmental justice.
That'd be great. Yeah, if you want to share some stuff right now, that'd be good. I think we're moving to the Q&A, right?
Yeah, we can do a couple minutes on this and then we'll zip into that Q&A.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you'd like to share some thoughts about the environmental justice needs, environmental justice opportunities, or things that you're doing in your own community, that'd be really great.
And while we're waiting for some things to come into the chat, oh, here's a great one from our friends at Central Presbyterian. Trees.
Good. Talk to us about that. Are y'all growing trees or planting
the roses?
We're climbing trees. We're climbing.
No, we're on a committee that's promoting canopy laws in Fort Smith area.
Okay.
Where builders just don't come in and raise everything to the ground and build homes and leave nothing behind except a few weeds. And we're promoting planting trees that are environmentally friendly and in places and areas that have no trees, that are kind of deserts around El Dorado and parks downtown and places like that. And trees are friendly to pollinators. They're friendly to the environment because the carbon sinks. So, just anything to do with trees, that's one of the most direct things you can do. And it adds to the beauty of the community as well.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. Very much so. They make it a whole lot easier for us to breathe, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
Good work, good work, good work.
Yeah,
Thank
Sonna, one thing that I want to touch on about environmental justice is that it has to go hand in hand with economic justice too, because so many of the people that are marginalized and, you know, are poor, if they're not able to get out of their environment there, it's going to be really hard for them to receive environmental justice. So we have to work on the economic injustice for our poor people and our marginalized and our races too.
Very much so. Yeah, that's that intersection. It has to be an intersectional approach to it. And I know a lot of times it seems exhausting and like it's an inconceivable way. But I think if it's intersectional, you're going to hit the important points of not only community building but empowerment, and that goes back to those Jaime's principles of organizing. So yeah, very very good. Yeah, it's got to be intersectional. We've got to talk about the economics that keep people in places where there isn't access to gardens and their food deserts. So yeah, I think very much very great point.
Here's one from Gina. Our church has a community garden. Our town is a new tourism retirement home hotspot. So they're looking at having some actual zoning laws or limits in the tiny town.
Where are you at again, Gina? Remind me, are you in Arkansas?
And Gina, you might be muted.
And while we're waiting, Gladys candidly said, embarrassed to admit that I don't handle for where the environmental hazards are in Fayetteville. Lake Fayetteville is toxic, non-point source. I wonder if there are racial elements to those sources. Haven't heard anything about that.
Oh, that's a good question. I'd love to hear more. Love to hear more about that, Gladys. Jasper by the Buffalo River, a relatively new national park. Do you live in Jasper, Gina?
Yeah, she
Close.
Okay. Thank you for sharing.
In,
Yeah.
in our area, if you're 45 minutes away, you're a neighbor, but
Okay.
it's a 15-minute drive.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing, Gina. Let's see.
And Shelley, thinking working conditions from the Latinx Marshallese community, including wage, which puts people at further risk of poverty, intersecting with everything else.
Very much so. Very much so. Yes. Talk to us a little bit about the Marshallese, what's going on in their community. Shelley, you have any feedback or report?
Well, what we have been hearing is that, of course, many of them work in at Tyson's or George's, and of course the Latinx community also. They're afraid to speak out about working conditions, and I think they have improved some now. But in the beginning of the pandemic, they were not given the necessary what preparation for COVID to protect them, and they were also not, sometimes they were sent home and they were told that they would be paid for the time they had to take off because there was COVID in the family, whatever, and the money just took forever getting there. And of course, if the money's not getting there, then that impacts the health. With the Marshallese community, especially, they're a very tight knit community, and they're caring for each other. And so they were hit very badly with COVID because they could not separate.
Is Kathy Jarvis How are the communities in Fort Smith?
Well, that's a very big question. Sonna, can you narrow it down a little bit?
I was thinking just in terms of the, in terms of the pandemic protocol and working conditions and housing conditions for them.
Well, I mean, I'm just thinking about the comments of a Latina friend of mine who works at one of the chicken plants, and who was, remarking very early on about how ludicrous it was about the 6-foot distancing. She said when 200 women have to have a 15-minute break to go to the bathroom, right? Don't talk about social distancing. It's just, we don't really know how many people fell in those poultry plants. We don't know. Only God knows that number. But you know what? It's not fair. That's one thing I can tell. That's the only thing I know. It's not fair what's happened to it's just not fair. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Darian has a very comment. Darian, would you just speak to yours?
Sure. I might hear some sounds in the background from my kiddos, but I know that recently there were some complaints on an online platform about the unhoused folks that were having to bathe in the splash pad, which they have access to water for all kinds of things that they otherwise may not have access to water for. And I was just really impressed to see members of the community come together to try to find other ways for them to be able to meet their needs rather than be upset about the fact that they were having to meet their needs in the local park. And I think that also spoke to the human dignity aspect, right? Of how does it feel to be the person who does have to bathe in a public park?
Very good, very good, very good.
Sonna, we've got 1 minute left on this segment before we wrap up. Did you want to have Chrissy speak about the straws?
Yeah, I think that'd be good if she wouldn't mind.
And I just want to point out that there's another great comment in the chat from Sissy and Carl for folks to read. But Christina May, that's all right with you, Sonna?
Yeah, please. Yeah, I'd like her to share her story.
Well, a couple of years ago, our kids, they get to use straws for breakfast, lunch, and dinner at school. And when we had 2 classes, it's 20 kids per class. So that's 40 students per breakfast, lunch, and snack. And so you multiply 40 times 3, well, do the math. And that's a lot of straws.
120.
Every day.
120.
Yeah, that's a lot of straws every day, every week, every month, every year. And so I was just thinking, I was just getting started with the environmental thing, but I thought that was one thing that we could probably control, at school, was the amount. And then not to mention, we have at least 2 preschools in every elementary school in Fort Smith. And Fort Smith has, we have it in 17 elementary schools in Fort Smith. So that's 2 times 17 times 120 straws every day, every week, every month. That's a lot of plastic and things. And so, my little personal part was to make sure that my school was not, really using those straws like that. And that was just my kind of way of just trying to help the environment, get my feet in the water as far as, environmental justice, was trying to eliminate the use of those plastic straws within my school. So
thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
Very good, very good work. Very, very good, very good. Okay.
There are environmentally good straws out there. I think they have paper ones and others that aren't as toxic to the environment.
Well, I realized that my kids can drink out of a milk carton just fine if we teach them.
I used to do it.
I think I did it.
You're a genius, Christina. You're a genius.
Oh, very good, very good, very good. Okay.
If I could, you want to bring it home?
Are we doing questions? We're opening up the floor for questions now. Is that what we're doing?
We are just at 4 minutes left, so
Okay. All righty then. So yeah, Arkansas Citizens Climate League. So we're so glad you all could join us. And appreciate you all coming out. If you have further questions or would like to send us your questions, we'll try to get to them. So talk about the league. What can I say about the league? I love this organization. I love Jan and I love Robert. And so our goal is to educate, encourage, and empower and engage communities. We believe with commitment to racial equity and social justice, there can be equitable solutions for ending the climate crisis. And we've made some strategic pivots over the term to sort of get us to a place to have a more robust conversation about environmental justice. One of the things was the Jaime's principles. The next thing was the working groups. And so along the way, we've made small steps. I think Gladys was talking about how do you do the work? So we've made small steps along the way so that we can orient and organize ourselves to be able to approach the climate crisis with a justice and equitable lens. So that is the work that we do. I am glad to be a part of the work. I'm proud of our board. I think we have Charles is here, who's on the board. I think Faye is here, is on the board. Darian's on the board. So I'm just really proud of the work that we've been able to do, even as we pivoted for the pandemic. So I think that's all of my time.
And there are a number of ways you can support our fill out the event feedback form. It will be emailed to every participant. Please follow us and share us on social media. You can become a monthly donor at www.arkcl.org. You can learn more about the League and our working groups on Thursday, October the 14th at 6 p.m. Email us at info@arkcl.org. And finally, before we leave, and Sonna says a few closing remarks, we are going to do a screenshot of all of our participants, and we want to give everybody a chance to look their best and yeah, you not have any seeing gestures going on or anything like that. So
get those smiles ready.
If everybody's ready,
We're in the dark.
Do we need to turn the light on?
No, we like the dark.
okay. And all right. Well, good looking group.
Good.
Beautiful people.
Yes. And Sonna.
Okay, we took the picture?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. Again, just want to say thank you. We are hoping the league can become a one-stop shop. We've talked a little bit about the relationship between the league and PACE. And so just to remind you that the work has to be done in community and at the intersections. So thank you all for your time. We have a 10 for 10 coming up where we'll talk a little bit more in depth about what the league is doing and what we're planning, a little bit more about our working group. So if you'd like to be a part of that, let us know. We encourage you to be a monthly donor to help us continue to do this work. Again, thank you all for your support. Don't forget to send in a little blurb about your environmental justice in your community. We love to share those stories in our annual report in our newsletter.
And send a picture if you have one.
Yeah, send a picture too. So thank you all so much for your time.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Good job. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Great job, y'all. It's good to see y'all.
Nice to
Good
see you,
to see
Darian.
you. Thank you.
Thanks so
How's the
much for
summer
being
going?
here.
Yeah, it's going. You know, I'm back at the university now, so it's really busy because we're moving all the students in and battling COVID and all the things. So
Oh, yeah, just,
You stay
yeah.
safe.
yeah,
Yes, just,
absolutely. It was good to see y'all.
Good
Good to see you. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy those kiddos.
I will.
Al, good to see you.
Bye.
Bye.